Okay, due to popular request, I am basically locking myself in the garage until this is semi-sorted. So, I've got a few other projects going on right now. This is my longest running project. It's a 1984 RX7 with a Series 6 or Series 5 Turbo 2 swap out of an FC RX7, which is the second generation. This is the first generation RX7. If you're not familiar with the channel or the build, it's running a Mega Squirt 3.57 and got factory turbo or factory hot side with a H trim. I think it's an H trim compressor wheel and housing. It's got front mount intercooler. It's got an FC oil cooler, Turbo 2 transmission, LSD rear, 3-link with pan hardbar rear, ground control coilovers in the front. Rear are I-box springs, and I need to get new struts for it. Had to work out that yet. Walbro 255 in-tank pump to AN6 line all the way up to regulator and the fuel rail. Primaries are factory 550cc injectors. Secondaries are 750cc injectors. Running the Turbo 2 coils, RFL blow-off valve. Sure, I'm forgetting other things. Along with the Mega Squirt, I've modified the factory crank angle sensor to be a 12-to-1 toothed wheel. So I was having issues with all sorts of things, and I've changed it up, and now it works a little bit better. My main list of things I need to do is I need to finalize my map sensor hose through the firewall. I need to get my wideband working right. Right now it just reads 10. So it should, right now it should be super lean because it's not running. Then when you start up, it should go back and forth and around. Need to figure that out. Need to adjust my VR conditioners because my Mega Squirt doesn't always pick up crank signal or that I'm cranking the engine over. So I need to get that to do that. That's been something I've been struggling with, but I think I've got it down to I just need to make a few more adjustments. So far, it's like every other time I go to start it, it doesn't catch sync, and then it does. So we'll see about that. Wiring harness needs to be cleaned up, finalized. I need to build a drive shaft. I need to build a box around the upper control arm at where it comes into the body on the back. I can show you that then. I need to finalize a few other little suspension things, but other than that, once I get a drive shaft and the engine run right and tuned right, it's pretty much going to be done. Oh yeah, I need to wire up the E-fan properly. I need to wire it into the board so it triggers it and kicks it on. So I'm going to start off with figuring out the wideband situation. Map sensor hose, I just have a temporary hose just run through the engine bay into that window. As soon as I can figure out that wideband, I can then start playing with the tune and clean it up a little bit once I get the crank signal picked up a little bit better. So I'm going to start with that, and I'm just going to check the basics to my gauge, power, ground, all that good stuff. So, yeah. Alright, so I started looking through the wideband stuff. It's all wired correctly, but I still have just no movement of it. It's just dead set on 10. So I emailed AEM's tech support, see what they say. We'll figure that out. So the 2 sensor and the controller don't have any runtime on it. Like, I doubt even a full hour. This motor really's never been up to full temperature yet. So in the meantime, I keep looking at the bulkhead connector and my firewall, and I'm just a little leery because it would be very easy for it to be just most of my issues with this just being in there. So I got that big huge hole for a grommet, and I got the grommet for it. So I think I'm going to get rid of the bulkhead fill the hole in the firewall, get rid of all that mess. Plus, it might not allow me, if I keep that there, I haven't tested it yet, I might not be able to put my blower motor in, which is pretty important to me in this car, because at some point I want it to be full AC, and I want the heat to work. I don't want to be one of these guys who can't drive their car because, oh, it started drizzling a little bit and it's kind of cold outside, and now your windshield just does nothing but fog up. I think I'm going to move everything to a single grommet. Like I probably should have done, 4 years ago when I built this harness. So I should have enough slack on the other side to make it happen, and I think that's going to be my next step. And I'll I'll include video of that while I'm doing that. That might even turn into just making the harness over again. I don't know. I don't know how this is going to go. Depends on my wire lengths and how hideous it's going to look, and how many wires I need to solder or splice or whatever. So I'm going to figure that out, and yeah, you'll be first to know. Alright, we are back on the RX7 today. Last I left off, I was going to rewire the car, and I basically did. I didn't film it. It would have just been a lot of me splicing wires. Didn't really rewire it. I just deleted the bulkhead connectors. Thought that would have been a great idea for, if I ever had to pull the motor or do something, I could just, unplug it there and unplug a few things there and zip the motor out. Well, it was a good idea, but I think I'm having a lot of issues with them. So I got rid of them. I went back to just using the OE firewall plug. I'm going to have to weld that hole shut. And then where that is, I'm going to put my map sensor hose tap. Then probably have another grommet through that for my EGT sensor. So right now this is all, I still need to kind of get some clamps to tie some things back. I did figure out that my wideband gauge is bad. My sensor itself is fine. The sensor shouldn't be having an issue, it works, but my wideband only shows 10. I was on phone with AEM's tech support about that, so I got to get a new gauge, and then I'll have that. Next thing I've been trying to do is get the E-fan working. It's wired in. I got it wired into a spare pin on the Mega Squirt. Can't see anything because the lighting in here right now is horrendous. So that's what I'm going to work on today. I think I might need to rewire that circuit for switched ground instead of positive trigger on the relay, because I believe Mega Squirt only goes either ground or 5 volts. So I'm going to have to play with that and show you how to do that. Alright, right now I'm in the output test mode screen. I have my multimeter here. Then I'm going to go and back probe the wire that I have my E-fan hooked up to, the trigger, and I'm going to measure what the voltage right there is, see if it's 5 volts when I trigger it on with this. So right now it doesn't run, so we'll see what I have to do here. I might have to switch a few things around in the harness to get it to ground out and run, but shouldn't be too terribly difficult. Right, let's see what happens. Alright, I triggered it on. It's in the port. So yeah, 5 volts. So I'm going to need to switch that around to ground it, and then once it goes to ground, it'll trigger that on. So let's try that. Alright, so I just made my life a little easier. I rewired it at the pin down there. So right now I have it on the F idle circuit because I'm not running a any sort of fast idle controller or I don't even have a idle valve. So that now works. So that has a transistor on the board to do 12 volts. So now that all works, I can clean all this up. The only other thing I need to do now is play with my VR conditioners so I can get my sync. Because it doesn't always sync. Sometimes it happens when I let off. I think that's part of the VR conditioners. See, it doesn't always want to start up. Then I get it sometimes. With no map, because that hose is still not hooked up. So I need to route the hose. I need to get a new wideband. I need to play with those VR conditioners until I can get it to pick up cranking right away. And then I think it's pretty much going to be set then that I can finish up some of the wiring and be done with this. It's been way too long, and I haven't been working on it consistently near enough. So we'll see how that goes. All right, once I get into some meat and potatoes or something else interesting, I'll turn the camera back on. Till then, I'm gonna fiddle with the VR conditioners on that circuit board in there. Sweet. All right, so I reread everything in the Mega Manual about the VR conditioners and realized my crank sensor was wired backwards. I mean, it stopped running as well, but I get sync every single time, so that's good news. If it kicks the E-fan on, I got it set at 175 degrees, so should kick it on in a safe area. Just make sure it's working right with the ECM. Yeah, okay, so I'm super stoked this thing's running right now. It did have the crank sensor backwards. The way you check that is go in the composite logger on the Mega Squirt and in Tuner Studio. Go into the composite logger in Tuner Studio, and I noticed each trigger spike on the trigger log, there were two of them. So reading through the manual, and manual stated if you see two of them, sensor's wired backwards. Flip those around, got sync right away, fired up. It's just like, okay. So now I need to put the interior together over there, put the Mega Squirt back together, put the glove box in, put the fuse panel in the glove box, make sure everything's out of the way of the blower motor, put the blower motor back in, and kind of sort through some of this other stuff, get a new wideband gauge, and a little bit of cleanup stuff up in here, run that through that plate. I might just make a plate. I know I have the original piece of the firewall somewhere. I just don't know where it exactly is, so I'll search for that, and if I can't find it, I'll make something to go in there, and then I'll have the bulkhead connector for my map hose. And yeah, I'm like stupid excited right now, so I'm gonna start tackling some of that stuff right now, I guess. Might as well. No better time than the present. Alright, got that sealed up now. I got a little seam sealer on there just to kind of close up a little bit of the pores in the weld where I ground it down. Gonna paint that tomorrow and get that all finished up. Got a hole there for the nipple for the map sensor, but yeah, it's coming along. Pretty much interior, rear brakes, some rust repair, body work eventually. paint the spoiler, pretty much go through the thing front and back, drive shaft, need to make a drive shaft or get a drive shaft made. Yeah, once all that's done, then the thing's gonna be pretty much done and on the road. I mean, body work's gonna wait a little bit because I don't have the patience nor the money to get it painted right now. I need this fender fixed, that rear quarter panel fixed, a bunch of little dents here and there. That thing's getting pretty crusty. A few spots around the windshield. So, yeah, eventually though, I mean, it's getting there. I'm super stoked right now that it just starts up on the turn of a key and just idles. You know, I have to work with the tune a little bit. I have to work with all that. I have to, you know, go through it all, but I'm tickled pink that it just fires up and runs. So yeah, I think that's gonna be it for this episode on this unit. Yeah, subscribe for more of this, or that, or everything else I have. All right, thanks for watching. See ya.